The warning siren screamed across Cedar Falls just after dawn. Commander Kyle Morrison was 300 miles above Earth when the first Zitharan dropships broke through the atmosphere. He stood on the bridge of his battle cruiser, the Defender, watching the enemy vessels descend like dark rain toward his hometown. "Sir, we have engine damage," Lieutenant Danny Harper said from the navigation console. "That last hit took out our main thrusters. We cannot intercept." Kyle's jaw tightened. The battle in orbit had lasted 6 hours. Humanity's defense fleet had fought hard, but the Zitharans had superior numbers and better weapons. Now his ship was crippled, floating uselessly in space while the enemy invaded the planet below. "Get me a visual on Cedar Falls," Kyle ordered. The main screen flickered to life. His hometown looked peaceful from orbit, a small city nestled in the Oregon valleys. He could see the elementary school where his mother had worked for 40 years. The town square where the farmers' market happened every Saturday. The streets where he had learned to ride a bicycle. Then the dropships landed and everything changed. The Zitharans were not like humans. They stood 8 feet tall with 4 arms and hard shells covering their bodies like armor. Their faces looked insect-like with multiple eyes that glowed yellow in the morning light. They moved quickly despite their size, their weapons firing blue energy blasts that turned buildings into rubble. Kyle watched helplessly as enemy soldiers poured into the streets. People ran in all directions, screaming, trying to find safety, but there was nowhere to hide. The Zitharans had done this before on other worlds. They knew how to break a population quickly. "Sir, we are receiving multiple distress signals from the surface," the communications officer said. Her voice shook. "Cedar Falls, Portland, Seattle. They are hitting every major city on the West Coast." Kyle said nothing. He watched the screen, his hands gripping the edge of the console until his knuckles turned white. Down there, somewhere in that chaos, was his mother, Margaret Morrison, age 63, retired school principal, the woman who had raised him alone after his father died in the mining accident. "Can we get the engines back online?" Kyle asked. "Not for at least 12 hours, sir," Harper replied. "The damage is too severe, 12 hours. Kyle closed his eyes. In 12 hours, how many people would die? How many children would lose their parents? How many mothers would lose their sons and daughters? The Zitharans worked fast. Within 2 hours, they had secured the major population centers. Their commanders issued orders in broken English, transmitted on all frequencies so everyone could hear. All humans were to report to designated gathering points. Anyone who resisted would be killed immediately. Anyone who hid would be hunted down. Kyle paced the bridge like a caged animal. His crew watched him nervously. They all knew he was from Cedar Falls. They all knew his mother still lived there. "We should hear something soon," Harper said quietly. "The Red Cross is setting up communications. They will get us a list of survivors." But Kyle knew better. He had studied the Zitharans for 3 years, ever since they first appeared at the edge of human space. He knew their tactics. He knew what they did to occupied worlds. They did not just want submission. They wanted to break the spirit of resistance before it could even start. The transmission came at noon. Every human ship and station received it simultaneously. The Zitharan High Commander wanted everyone to see what happened to those who defied the Empire. The video showed Cedar Falls town square. The Zitharans had erected a platform in the center, a crude wooden structure with a crossbeam and ropes. Kyle recognized the location immediately. It was where his mother had organized charity drives and holiday celebrations, where children played and families gathered. Now it was filled with prisoners. The Zitharans had rounded up community leaders from across the city. Kyle saw Mayor Patricia Webb, who had run Cedar Falls for 15 years. He saw Principal Derek Hayes from the high school. He saw Pastor Helen Cruz from the Methodist Church. And there, standing straight and calm despite the rope around her neck, was his mother. Margaret Morrison looked tired but not afraid. Her gray hair was pulled back in the simple bun she always wore. Her glasses sat crooked on her nose, but her eyes were clear and steady as she looked directly at the camera. The Zitharan commander spoke in his clicking, hissing language. A translator box converted his words to English. "This is the price of resistance. This is what happens to those who do not bow. Watch and learn, humans. Your defiance means nothing." Kyle could not move, could not breathe. The bridge had gone completely silent. Everyone stared at the screen, horror written on their faces. His mother was the first one they chose. Two Zithran soldiers positioned her over the trapdoor. She did not struggle or cry out. Instead, she did something that would change everything. She spoke. "My son is out there," Margaret said, her voice carrying across the square. The Zitharans did not stop her. Perhaps they thought her final words would demoralize the watching humans. "Kyle, if you can hear me, listen carefully. Do not let this break you. Do not let them win. We are humans. We do not surrender. We do not forget. And we never ever give up on what is right." She took a breath, looked directly at the camera one more time, and smiled. It was the same smile she had given Kyle every morning before school. The same smile she had given him when he left for the military academy. The same smile that said she was proud of him no matter what. "Never surrender," she said. "Never forget who we are." The trapdoor opened. Kyle Morrison did not scream, did not cry out, did not collapse. He simply stood there, frozen, as the transmission ended and the screen went black. Around him, his crew was silent. Some were crying. Others looked away, unable to meet his eyes. Lieutenant Harper stepped forward cautiously. "Commander, I am so sorry. We all are. Your mother was a good woman. She did not deserve this." Kyle still did not move. Inside his chest, something was happening. Something fundamental was changing. The grief was there, huge and terrible, threatening to drown him. But underneath the grief was something else. Something cold and sharp and absolutely focused. Rage. Not the hot, uncontrolled anger that made people stupid. This was different. This was rage that had been refined into something pure, something that could be aimed and directed with surgical precision. The Zitharans thought they had broken humanity's spirit by killing his mother. They thought they had sent a message about their power. They were wrong. They had just created something far more dangerous than any weapon humanity had ever built. They had created a man with nothing left to lose and every reason to fight. They had taken the most decorated soldier in the United Earth Defense Force and stripped away every restraint, every doubt, every reason to hold back. Kyle turned to face his crew. They stepped back involuntarily. Something in his eyes had changed. Where there had been warmth and compassion, now there was only cold calculation. "How long until the engines are operational?" he asked. His voice was calm, almost emotionless. 10 hours, sir," Harper said. "Make it 8. I do not care how you do it. Tear apart every non-essential system if you have to." Kyle walked to the weapons station. "I want a full inventory of our armaments. Everything we have left. Missiles, torpedoes, kinetic rounds, everything." "Sir, what are you planning?" Kyle looked at the black screen where his mother's image had been moments before. "I am going to teach the Zitharans why you do not mess with a human's family. And I am going to make sure every alien in this galaxy learns that lesson. Get me Admiral Walsh on a secure channel. Tell him I am requesting immediate transfer to Special Operations Command." "Special Operations? Sir, you command a battle cruiser. That is a step down in rank and authority." "I do not want authority," Kyle said quietly. "I want freedom to act. I want to choose my targets. I want to hit them where it hurts most. And I want to do it without committees and politicians telling me when and how to fight." He turned back to the view screen, staring at Earth below, somewhere down there. His mother's body hung in Cedar Falls Square. The Zitharans had left it there as a warning, as a symbol of their power. They had just made their first mistake. "Get me that channel," Kyle repeated. "And somebody bring me every file we have on Zitharan command structures, supply lines, and communication networks. I want to know everything about how they operate. Every weakness, every vulnerability." Lieutenant Harper exchanged glances with the other officers. They all understood what they were seeing. Commander Kyle Morrison, the man who had always fought by the rules and followed proper procedures, was gone. In his place stood something else entirely, a predator preparing to hunt. The Zitharans wanted to send a message by hanging his mother. Kyle Morrison was going to send one back, and his message would be written in fire and blood across every world the enemy controlled. "Never surrender," his mother had said. Never forget. He would not forget, ever. And neither would the Zitharans. He would make sure of that. The funeral service took place on the UEDS Valiant, the largest ship in humanity's defense fleet. Over 200 officers filled the observation deck, all wearing their formal uniforms. They stood in neat rows, silent and respectful, while the chaplain spoke words about sacrifice and duty. Kyle Morrison heard none of it. He stood apart from the others, staring through the massive viewport at Earth below. The planet looked peaceful from this distance, beautiful. No one could see the Zytheran occupation forces from up here. No one could see the destroyed cities or the prison camps or the mass graves. His mother's coffin sat on a platform draped with the Earth flag. The coffin was empty. The Zytheran still had not released her body. They kept it hanging in Cedar Falls Square as their sick trophy. But humanity needed somewhere to grieve, so they held the funeral anyway. Admiral Gregory Walsh approached slowly. He was a large man with white hair and a face lined from 40 years of military service. He had known Margaret Morrison personally. She had taught his daughter in 3rd grade. "Kyle," Walsh said softly, "I know this is difficult. Take all the time you need. Your crew can manage without you for a few weeks." Kyle did not turn from the window. "Time for what, Admiral? Time to grieve? Time to accept what happened? Time to move on? Time to heal?" "I do not want to heal." Kyle's voice was flat, empty of emotion. "Healing means forgetting. Moving forward. Getting back to normal. There is no normal anymore, sir. They took that away when they murdered my mother." Walsh placed a hand on Kyle's shoulder. "She would not want you to destroy yourself over this. Margaret was all about building people up, not tearing them down. Even yourself." For the first time since the funeral started, Kyle turned to face the Admiral. Walsh took an involuntary step backward. The man before him had Kyle's face, but the eyes were different. Colder, harder, like looking at a stranger. "My mother spent 40 years teaching children to stand up to bullies," Kyle said, "to fight for what is right, to never let evil win through silence and inaction. The Zytherans are bullies, Admiral. The biggest bullies humanity has ever faced, and she told me with her last breath never to surrender. I understand, but there are proper channels. We are planning a counter-offensive. High Command estimates 6 months to organize a coordinated response across all theaters." 6 months? Kyle laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Admiral, do you know how many humans the Zytherans execute every day? On average, they kill 200 people across all occupied territories. That is their standard protocol for maintaining control. In 6 months, that is 36,000 dead. 36,000 mothers and fathers and sons and daughters. How many of them will die while we sit in meetings and plan the proper response?" Walsh had no answer. Kyle turned back to the viewport. "I am requesting immediate transfer to Special Operations Division," Kyle said. "Full operational autonomy. No oversight committees. No bureaucratic approval processes. I choose my targets, I choose my methods, and I execute missions on my timeline. That is not how the military works. Kyle, we have rules, procedures. Chain of command exists for good reasons. The Zytherans do not follow our rules, Admiral. They do not care about our procedures. They came to our world, murdered civilians, and broadcast executions as entertainment, and we are going to defeat them by following proper channels and filling out the right forms." Kyle pulled a data chip from his pocket and handed it to Walsh. "I spent the last 72 hours putting this together. It is a complete operational plan for striking back at the Zytherans using unconventional tactics. Small teams, fast strikes, hit their supply lines, their communication networks, their command structures. Make them afraid to sleep at night." Walsh looked at the data chip but did not take it. "Kyle, you are talking about guerrilla warfare. Terrorism, some would call it. I am talking about winning. They want a conventional war where their superior technology gives them the advantage. I want to give them something different. Something they are not prepared for. And if High Command says no," Kyle's expression did not change, "then I will resign my commission and do it anyway. I would prefer to fight with Earth's blessing and resources. But with or without them, I am going to war against the Zytherans. That is not a threat, Admiral. That is a fact." Walsh stared at the younger man for a long moment. He saw determination there, purpose, but also something that worried him deeply. Kyle Morrison had always been humanity's best soldier. Brilliant tactically, brave under fire, but also measured and controlled. The man before him now had lost that control. Or perhaps he had simply decided control was a luxury he could no longer afford. "I will take this to High Command," Walsh said finally, pocketing the data chip. "But I cannot promise anything. They may decide you are too emotionally compromised for active duty. Then they would be fools. I am not compromised, Admiral. I am focused. For the first time in my life, I see everything with perfect clarity. The Zytherans made a mistake when they killed my mother. They thought it would break our spirit. Instead, they showed us exactly what we are fighting against. Monsters who kill innocent people for sport. And they gave me all the motivation I will ever need." The funeral ended an hour later. Officers filed out quietly, many stopping to offer Kyle their condolences. He accepted each one with a nod but said nothing. Words seemed pointless now. What could anyone say that would change anything? Lieutenant Danny Harper waited until the room was nearly empty before approaching. He had served under Kyle for 3 years and knew him better than most. "The crew wants you to know we are with you," Harper said. "Whatever you decide to do, wherever you go, we will follow. You might not like where I am going, Danny. Does not matter. You are our commander. More than that, you are our friend. What happened to your mother was wrong. Evil. If you are going to make the Zitherans pay for it, we want to help." Kyle looked at his lieutenant. Harper was young, only 26, with a wife and newborn daughter waiting for him back on Mars colony. This will be dangerous. More dangerous than anything we have done before. I am not going to follow standard engagement protocols. I am going to hurt them in ways that make them wish they had never heard of Earth. Good, Harper said simply. They deserve it. Over the next 3 days, Kyle lived in the Valiant strategy room. He barely slept, barely ate. The walls became covered with maps, photos, data readouts, every Zitharan position on Earth, every supply depot, every communication relay. Every command post, he studied their patterns, learned their habits, found their weaknesses. The Zitharans were powerful but not invincible. They relied heavily on supply chains stretching back to their homeworlds. They concentrated forces in major cities but left rural areas lightly defended. Their communication networks used centralized hubs that could be disrupted. Captain Lisa Morgan found him there on the 3rd night. She was the finest sniper in the fleet, with confirmed kills at distances that seemed impossible. She had served with Kyle on 4 campaigns and never seen him like this. "Admiral Walsh approved your transfer," she said. "High Command agreed to give you operational autonomy. Limited resources, but complete freedom in how you use them." Kyle looked up from the maps. "What changed their minds?" "Your plan. They read it. Half of them called it insane. The other half called it brilliant. Eventually Brilliant won." Lisa paused. "They also realized they could not stop you. If they denied the request, you would go anyway. At least this way they can provide support. Smart. Kyle, I want in. Whatever unit you are forming, I want to be part of it. It will not be a normal unit, Lisa. No medals, no glory. We will be doing things that do not make it into official reports, things that would horrify the civilians we are protecting. War is horrifying. Pretending otherwise does not change that fact. The Zitharans started this by targeting civilians, by making examples of innocent people. If we are going to beat them, we need to fight the war they brought to us, not the war we wish we were fighting." Kyle stood and walked to the viewport. Earth hung below, half in shadow. "I am putting together a team, small, elite. People I trust absolutely. Lieutenant Jake Peterson from engineering. He knows explosives better than anyone. Sergeant Claire Dixon from tactical planning. She can see 3 moves ahead in any situation. You, if you are serious about joining." "I am serious." "Then here is what we are going to do." Kyle pulled up a holographic map of Cedar Falls. "Our first mission is personal. We are going to take back my hometown. We are going to kill every Zitharan there, and we are going to do it in a way that sends a message to their high command." Lisa studied the map. The Zitharans had turned Cedar Falls into a regional headquarters, with over 5,000 troops stationed there. Traditional military thinking would say retaking the city required at least 10,000 soldiers and weeks of planning. "When do we leave?" she asked. 48 hours. "I am meeting with Peterson and Dixon tomorrow to brief them. We hit fast, we hit hard, and we disappear before they can respond." "And your mother's body?" Kyle's jaw tightened. "We bring her home. That is the primary objective. Everything else is secondary." The next morning, Kyle met with his team in a secure briefing room. Peterson was a broad-shouldered man with burn scars on his hands from years of working with explosives. Dixon was small and quiet, but her mind. The insertion team dropped from orbit at midnight. 4 pods fell through Earth's atmosphere like shooting stars, their heat shields glowing orange as friction turned the air around them into plasma. To anyone watching from the ground, they looked like meteorites burning up harmlessly. That was exactly what Kyle Morrison wanted the Zitharans to think. The pods landed 15 miles outside Cedar Falls in a dense forest the Zitharans had not bothered to patrol. Kyle was the first out, his boots hitting the soft earth with barely a sound. Lisa Morgan emerged next, her sniper rifle already assembled and ready. Jake Peterson followed, carrying 2 heavy packs filled with enough explosives to level a city block. Claire Dixon came last, her portable computer rig strapped to her back. "Sound off," Kyle whispered into his comm unit. Morgan, operational. Peterson, ready to blow things up. Dixon, all systems green. Kyle nodded and checked his tactical display. They had 6 hours until dawn. 6 hours to cross 15 miles of rough terrain, infiltrate a city occupied by 5,000 enemy soldiers, plant explosives throughout their command center, and escape before anyone noticed. The timeline was tight but doable. Move out. Stay quiet. If we encounter patrols, avoid them if possible. We are not here to fight every Zytheran on Earth. Just the ones in Cedar Falls. They moved through the forest like ghosts. Years of combat experience had taught them how to walk silently, how to use shadows and cover, how to become invisible even in open ground. The Zytherans had sensors and patrol drones, but Dixon's electronic warfare equipment made them effectively blind to the team's presence. 2 hours later, they reached the outskirts of Cedar Falls. Kyle stopped at the edge of a ridgeline and looked down at his hometown. Even in darkness, he could see how much it had changed. The Zytherans had erected barriers around the main streets. Guard towers stood at major intersections. Searchlights swept back and forth looking for any sign of human resistance. The town square where his mother had died was lit up like daytime. He could see her body still hanging there, a grim warning to anyone who might think about fighting back. Kyle felt his hands curl into fists. Soon, he told himself. Very soon. The entrance to the old mining tunnels is 2 miles east, Kyle said. There is a maintenance shed near the old Morrison quarry. My grandfather worked there before the mine closed. The shaft entrance is inside. They circled around the city, staying well outside the Zytheran perimeter. The quarry was abandoned and overgrown with weeds. The maintenance shed was exactly where Kyle remembered, though now it was falling apart from years of neglect. Peterson pulled the rusted door open. Inside was darkness and the smell of old earth. Kyle pulled out a flashlight and shone it down into the shaft. The metal ladder leading down looked ancient but still solid. Ladies first, Peterson joked, gesturing to Lisa. Age before beauty, she shot back, pointing at the ladder. Kyle went first. The shaft dropped 40 feet straight down before connecting to the horizontal mining tunnel. Water dripped from the ceiling and the air was cold and damp. But the tunnel was stable, carved through solid rock by miners who had known their craft. This tunnel runs under the entire city, Kyle explained as they followed him into the darkness. It connects to the sewage system about half a mile ahead. From there, we can access any building in downtown Cedar Falls, including City Hall, which the Zytherans turned into their command post. Dixon checked her computer. I am picking up Zytheran communications traffic. Heavy encryption, but I can work with it. They are running standard patrol patterns. Nothing that suggests they know we are here. Good. Let's keep it that way. They walked through the tunnels for 30 minutes, following the path Kyle remembered from childhood field trips. His mother had led those trips, teaching kids about local history and geology. She had made learning fun, turning dark tunnels into adventures. Kyle pushed the memory away. He could not afford sentiment right now. He needed to stay cold and focused. The sewage system was exactly where he remembered. They climbed up into the concrete pipes and followed them toward the city center. The smell was awful, but none of them complained. Discomfort was nothing compared to what they were about to do. We are directly under City Hall, Dixon whispered, checking her position. 3 levels above us is the Zytheran command center. Kyle nodded. Peterson, you are up. Plant charges in the support columns. I want this entire building to come down when we trigger them. How much damage are we talking? Partial collapse or total destruction? Total. I want every Zytheran in this building dead. No survivors. Peterson grinned and started unpacking his explosives. He worked quickly and efficiently, placing shaped charges against the concrete columns that held up the building above. Each charge was small but powerful, designed to cut through reinforced structures like a hot knife through butter. While Peterson worked, Dixon hacked into the Zytheran communication network. Her fingers flew across her keyboard, breaking through layers of encryption. I am in. They are not expecting any kind of electronic warfare. Their security is good against brute force attacks, but terrible against infiltration. Can you feed them false information? Kyle asked. Absolutely. What do you want them to hear? Tell them there is human activity on the north side of town. Make it sound like a major assault force is gathering there. Pull as many troops away from the center as possible. Dixon's fingers danced across the keys. A moment later, alarms started blaring throughout the city. The Zitharan communication network lit up with urgent messages. Enemy contacts reported, multiple human signatures detected. All units respond to Sector 7. Through the pipes above them, they could hear the sounds of Zitharan troops mobilizing. Heavy footsteps. Shouted orders in their clicking, hissing language. Equipment being moved. Within minutes, the command center above them was half empty as soldiers rushed to respond to the fake threat. "That bought us some time," Lisa said, "but they will figure out it is a diversion eventually." "We will be long gone by then," Kyle replied. He turned to Peterson. "How much longer?"
5 minutes.
"I am placing the last charges now." Kyle checked his tactical display. Dawn was still 2 hours away. Perfect. They would trigger the explosives, use the chaos to retrieve his mother's body from the town square, and be back in the tunnels before the Zitharans understood what had happened. Peterson finished his work and rejoined the group. "All charges are placed and linked to a remote detonator. When you press the button, this whole building goes down. Should take about 15 seconds for complete structural failure." "Excellent work. Now we move to Phase 2. Morgan, you are going to take a position on the water tower 3 blocks from the town square. You will have overwatch on our extraction route. Anyone who tries to stop us, you put them down." "Understood. Dixon, you stay in the tunnels and keep jamming their communications. I want total confusion. They should not be able to coordinate any kind of response." "I can do that." "Peterson, you are with me. We are going into the square to recover my mother's body. Once we have her, we signal Morgan and make our way back to the tunnels. Everyone clear?" 3 voices confirmed understanding. Kyle pulled out a small remote detonator and looked at it. 1 button. Press it and City Hall would collapse, killing hundreds of Zitharans. Some people would call that murder. Kyle called it justice. He pressed the button. The explosion was massive, even from underground. The ground shook violently, and dust rained down from the tunnel ceiling. Above them, the entire City Hall building was collapsing in on itself. Support columns shattered. Floors pancaked down on top of each other. The structure that had stood for 80 years was reduced to rubble in 15 seconds. Kyle felt nothing. No satisfaction, no guilt, just cold determination. "Move," he ordered. They split up according to plan. Morgan headed for the water tower, her rifle strapped to her back. Dixon stayed in the tunnels with her equipment, already jamming every Zitharan frequency she could find. Kyle and Peterson climbed up through a storm drain that opened into an alley 2 blocks from the town square. The city was in total chaos. Sirens wailed. Fires burned where the command center had stood. Zitharan soldiers ran in every direction trying to understand what had happened. Their communication network was down, leaving them unable to coordinate. It was exactly what Kyle had planned. He moved through the streets like a shadow, Peterson close behind. They avoided patrols easily. The Zitharans were focused on the destroyed command center and the fake enemy contacts to the north. No one was watching the town square anymore. Kyle's mother still hung there, her body illuminated by the harsh spotlights. Seeing her like that, even after all the preparation and planning, hit Kyle like a physical blow, but he forced himself to stay focused. He was here to bring her home. Everything else could wait. Peterson stood guard while Kyle approached the platform. He climbed up and carefully removed the rope from around his mother's neck. Her body was light, too light. She had always been a small woman, but death had made her seem even smaller. "I am sorry, Mom," Kyle whispered. "I should have been here. Should have protected you. But there was no time for grief, not yet." He wrapped her body in a thermal blanket from his pack and lifted her carefully. "Got her," he said into his comm. "Morgan, we are moving. Cover our withdrawal." 6 months after Margaret Morrison's execution, the Zitharan occupation of Earth was falling apart. What should have been a simple conquest had turned into a nightmare of constant guerrilla attacks and supply line disruptions. Every day brought new reports of destroyed facilities, eliminated commanders, and demoralized troops. Kyle Morrison's tactics had been copied by resistance cells across the planet. His playbook became the standard for fighting the technologically superior enemy. Hit fast, hit hard, disappear before they could respond, never fight on their terms, always keep them off balance. The Zitharans lost more soldiers to Kyle's operations than they had in the previous 3 wars combined. Their high command was furious and desperate. They increased patrols, tightened security, and executed prisoners as retaliation, but nothing worked. If anything, The executions only made human resistance fiercer. Kyle sat in a briefing room aboard the Valiant, studying intelligence reports from the latest round of operations. His team had hit 15 targets in the past month alone. Supply depots across North America, communication relays in Europe, command posts in Asia. Each strike was perfectly planned and brutally executed. Lieutenant Danny Harper entered with a datapad. "Sir, we have a situation. High Command wants to speak with you immediately. Priority 1 communication. What is it about?" "The Zithrans are requesting a ceasefire. They want to negotiate." Kyle looked up sharply. "Since when do the Zithrans negotiate?" "Since we started making occupation too expensive for them." "Admiral Walsh says it is urgent. The High Command is gathering now." 20 minutes later, Kyle stood in the Valiant's command center surrounded by Earth's military leadership. Admiral Walsh was there, along with General Linda Carter, who commanded ground forces, and Fleet Commander Nathan Brooks, who oversaw space operations. "Commander Morrison," Walsh began, "the Zethran High Command has transmitted a formal proposal. They are willing to withdraw from Earth completely and permanently." Kyle's expression did not change. "What do they want in return?" Walsh hesitated. The room went silent. Kyle waited for the Admiral to continue. "They want you to surrender yourself for trial under their judicial system. They are charging you with war crimes, specifically the targeting of civilian infrastructure and the use of terror tactics." "They are calling me a war criminal?" Kyle almost laughed. "They came to our world. They murdered civilians. They broadcast executions as entertainment. And I am the criminal?" "That is their position," General Carter said. "But here is the thing. Our intelligence suggests this offer is genuine. They really will leave Earth if you turn yourself in." "And what happens to me?" Walsh looked uncomfortable. "According to their laws, the penalty for what they are charging you with is execution." Kyle absorbed this information calmly. Around him, his team had gone rigid with anger. Lisa Morgan's hand moved toward her sidearm before she caught herself. Jake Peterson looked ready to start shooting Zitharans immediately. Claire Dixon's face was pale but determined. "So they want me to walk into their custody, submit to a trial we all know is predetermined, and let them execute me. In exchange, they leave humanity alone. That is the offer," Walsh confirmed. "What does High Command think?" Walsh exchanged glances with the other senior officers. "High Command is divided. Some see this as an opportunity for peace. Others believe it is a trap." "It is definitely a trap," Kyle said. "But that is not what you are really asking me. You want to know if I will do it anyway, if I will trade my life for Earth's freedom." No one answered, but their silence was answer enough. Kyle turned to his team. Lisa, Jake, and Claire had followed him through 6 months of hell. They had never questioned his orders, never hesitated when things got dangerous. They deserved to be part of this decision. "What do you think?" he asked them. Lisa spoke first. "It is a trap. They will take you, kill you, and then come back with reinforcements. The Zitharans do not honor agreements. We have seen that on every world they have conquered." "I agree," Peterson added. "They are desperate. We have hurt them badly. This is their attempt to remove you from the equation and buy time to rebuild. Once you are gone, they think human resistance will collapse." Dixon had been working on her computer while the others talked. Now she looked up. "I have been analyzing Zitharan communication intercepts for the past 6 months. Their morale is in freefall. Supply chains are stretched to breaking. They are losing ships and equipment faster than they can replace them. And there is something else. Their High Command has been receiving pressure from their home worlds. The occupation of Earth is costing them resources they need elsewhere. So they are actually scared," Kyle said. "Terrified. You have become a legend to them. The human who cannot be stopped. The soldier who strikes from nowhere and vanishes like smoke. Every commander they send to Earth, you kill. Every facility they build, you destroy. They call you the ghost of Earth in their communications." Kyle walked to the viewport and looked out at the planet below. Somewhere down there, his mother was buried in Cedar Falls. They had held a proper funeral after recovering her body. Half the town had attended despite the danger. She was a hero now, the woman whose final words had inspired a resistance movement. What would she want him to do? The question was easy to answer. Margaret Morrison had spent her life teaching children to stand up to bullies. But she had also taught them to be smart, to think strategically, to not let anger cloud judgment. "If I surrender, the Zitharans will execute me," Kyle said slowly. "That much is certain." But will they actually leave Earth? That is less certain. They might honor the agreement or they might break it the moment I am dead. We cannot know for sure. So what do you want to do? Walsh asked. Kyle smiled for the first time in months. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of a predator who had just spotted wounded prey. I want to send them a message. Not the message they are expecting, but one they will never forget. He turned back to face the assembled officers. Here is what I propose. We publicly announce that I am considering their offer. We drag out negotiations for as long as possible. Meanwhile, we prepare for the biggest operation we have ever attempted. One final strike that will hurt them so badly they will have no choice but to leave. What kind of strike? General Carter asked. Their Mars facility. It is their primary staging base for the entire Earth occupation. Everything flows through there. Supplies, reinforcements, communications. If we destroy it, we cut the head off their operations in this entire star system. Fleet Commander Brooks shook his head. That base has over 50,000 troops, orbital defense platforms, advanced shields. The facilities are built into the Martian rock itself. It would take our entire fleet to even have a chance, and we would probably lose most of our ships in the attempt. I am not proposing a conventional assault, Kyle said. I am proposing we do what we do best. We infiltrate. We sabotage. We turn their own systems against them. And we do it while they are distracted by negotiations over my surrender. Walsh leaned forward. You are talking about a suicide mission. I am talking about a mission that ends this war. The Zitherans wanted to make an example of my mother. Instead, I am going to make an example of them. I am going to show every alien species in this galaxy what happens when you underestimate humanity. Dixon was already running calculations on her computer. The Mars base has vulnerabilities. Their power grid depends on 3 fusion reactors. If we could overload them simultaneously, the resulting explosion would destroy everything within 5 miles. Including the base. How do we get inside? Peterson asked. Those defenses are not going to let us just walk in. We use their own arrogance against them, Kyle said. They want me for trial, so we tell them I am coming in for a preliminary negotiation, a gesture of good faith. They will lower their defenses because they think they have already won. Lisa stood up. You are actually planning to walk into their base. We all are. The entire team. We tell them I want my closest advisors present for the negotiations. They will agree because it makes them look magnanimous. Once we are inside, we plant charges on the reactors and get out before they explode. That is insane, Walsh said. But there was respect in his voice. The entire war has been insane, Admiral. We are a planet of 7 billion people fighting an empire that controls hundreds of worlds. By all logic, we should have surrendered on day 1. But we did not. We fought back. And we have shown them that technology and numbers do not always win wars. Sometimes courage and determination are enough. Kyle looked around the room at the faces of Earth's military leadership. They were tired, worn down by months of brutal conflict, but they were not defeated. The Zitherans had tried to break humanity's spirit and failed. This is our chance to end it, Kyle continued, not by accepting their terms, but by making them realize that continuing this war will cost them everything. They want me? Fine, they can have me. But they are going to regret ever asking. Admiral Walsh was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. High Command will need to approve this. But I will recommend they do. When do you want to launch? The negotiations should take at least 2 weeks to arrange. That gives us time to prepare, gather intelligence on the Mars base, and position our forces. We hit them in 20 days. The diplomatic transport approached Mars with running lights bright and transponder broadcasting peaceful intentions. Inside the small vessel, Kyle Morrison sat across from his team in silence. They wore formal military uniforms instead of combat gear. Their weapons were locked in the cargo bay as required by the negotiation protocols. To any observer, they looked like officers arriving for peace talks. The Zitherans had agreed to Kyle's terms surprisingly quickly. They wanted this war over almost as badly as humanity did. The Mars facility had opened its defenses and granted the transport permission to dock at the main hangar bay. They are actually going to let us land, Jake Peterson said quietly. I half expected them to blow us out of space. They think they have already won, Kyle replied. They believe I am desperate enough to trade my life for Earth's freedom. That makes them careless. Claire Dixon monitored her hidden scanning equipment disguised as a simple data pad. I am reading the base layout now. 3 fusion reactors exactly where intelligence said they would be. Heavy guard presence, but mostly ceremonial. They are not expecting trouble. Lisa Morgan checked her concealed sidearm one more time. Once we start this, there is no going back. We will have maybe 15 minutes before the reactors overload. That is not much time to fight through an entire base and reach our extraction point. Then we move fast, Kyle said. Dixon plants the overload programs in the reactor control systems. Peterson sets physical charges as backup. Morgan and I clear a path and hold off reinforcements. Standard procedure. Standard procedure for a suicide mission, Lisa muttered, but she was smiling slightly. The transport shuddered as docking clamps engaged. Through the viewport, Kyle could see the massive hangar bay of the Mars facility. It was enormous, carved directly into the Martian bedrock and reinforced with alien metals. Dozens of Zitharan warships sat in neat rows, being serviced and refueled. This was the heart of their entire occupation force. Admiral Gregory Walsh's voice came through the secure comm channel. Valiant to Morrison. We have 30 ships holding position at the edge of Mars orbit. The moment you signal we are coming in. Understood, Admiral. Try not to start the party without us. Kyle. Walsh's voice was serious now. If this goes badly, know that what you have done these past months has already changed everything. You gave humanity hope when we had none. Your mother would be proud. Kyle swallowed the sudden tightness in his throat. Thank you, sir. See you on the other side. The comm channel closed. The transport's boarding ramp lowered with a hiss of equalizing pressure. Kyle stood and straightened his uniform. His team fell in behind him, walking down the ramp into the Zitharan base with heads held high. A delegation of alien officers waited for them. The lead Zitharan was tall even by their standards, his carapace decorated with rank insignia that marked him as a high commander. His forearms ended in clawed hands, and his multiple eyes regarded Kyle with what might have been curiosity. Commander Morrison, the Zitharan said through his translator device. I am Commander Zaxthor. We are prepared to begin negotiations for your surrender and the withdrawal of our forces from Earth. Kyle met the alien's gaze without flinching. Before we discuss terms, my team requires a tour of this facility. We need to verify that you have the authority to enforce any agreement we reach. Zaxthor's mandibles clicked together in what might have been amusement. You wish to inspect our base? That is highly unusual. These are unusual circumstances. You are asking me to trade my life for my planet's freedom. I want proof that you can deliver on that promise. Show me your command center, your communication hubs, your power systems. Prove to me that this facility truly controls the occupation. The Zitharan commander considered this for a moment. Then he gestured with 2 of his arms. Very well. We have nothing to hide. You will see that the Zitharan Empire keeps its word. They were escorted through the facility by a squad of alien guards. Kyle memorized every corridor, every junction, every emergency exit. Dixon's hidden scanner was mapping the entire layout, feeding data to the rest of the team through their linked implants. The first fusion reactor was located 3 levels below the main hangar. It was a massive structure, glowing with barely contained energy. Zitharan technicians monitored dozens of control panels, ensuring the power flow remained stable. This reactor alone powers half the base, Zaxthor said proudly. It is perfectly safe. We have operated facilities like this for centuries without incident. Impressive, Kyle said, while Dixon quietly marked the reactor's control systems for sabotage. They continued the tour. Command center, communication arrays, weapons storage. Everything Kyle's team needed to know about the facility's critical infrastructure. The Zitharans showed them willingly, never suspecting that they were providing the blueprint for their own destruction. 2 hours into the tour, they reached the main power distribution center. This was the nexus that connected all 3 reactors and distributed their energy throughout the base. Peterson studied the massive conduits with professional interest. This is remarkable engineering, Peterson said truthfully. But what happens if one reactor fails? Do the others compensate? There are automatic safety systems, a Zitharan technician explained. If one reactor shows signs of overload, it is immediately isolated from the grid and powered down. What if all 3 reactors were compromised simultaneously? Peterson asked innocently. The technician's expression was impossible to read, but his tone suggested he thought the question was foolish. That is impossible. The redundancies and failsafes make such an occurrence statistically improbable. Good to know, Peterson said, while mentally calculating exactly how to make the impossible happen. Commander Zaxthor led them to a conference room where the actual negotiations were scheduled to take place. A long table had been set up with chairs for humans on one side and raised platforms for Zitherans on the other. We will begin formal discussions in 1 hour, Zaxthor said. That gives you time to consult with your team and prepare your terms. Food and refreshments are available if you require them. The Zitherans left, though guards remained stationed outside the conference room. The moment the door closed, Kyle's team went to work. Dixon pulled out her datapad and began typing rapidly. I have complete schematics of the base now. The 3 reactors are in a triangular formation beneath us. If I can access the control systems remotely, I can override the safety protocols and induce overload in all 3 simultaneously. Can you do it from here? Kyle asked. Give me 15 minutes. Peterson laid out a series of small devices on the table. They looked like standard diplomatic recording equipment, but were actually compact explosives. These are for backup. If Dixon's hack does not work, we go old school. But we will need direct access to each reactor. That means splitting up, Lisa said. Not ideal when we are surrounded by 50,000 enemy soldiers. Kyle checked his concealed weapon. It was small, low profile, designed to pass cursory security scans. Not enough firepower for a prolonged fight, but enough to handle close-quarters combat. We adapt. That is what we do. Dixon worked in focused silence, her fingers flying across the datapad's surface. She was breaking through layers of Zitharan security, exploiting vulnerabilities that humanity had learned through months of captured equipment and intercepted communications. I am in, she said finally. I have access to all 3 reactor control systems. The safety protocols are more sophisticated than I expected, but I can work around them. How long once you trigger the overload? Kyle asked. 18 minutes until critical containment failure. After that, each reactor will explode with approximately the force of a tactical nuclear weapon. The combined explosions will destroy everything within a 7-mile radius. And we will be at ground zero. Fantastic. Peterson grinned. I love it when a plan comes together. Kyle activated his secure comm. Morrison to Valiant. We are initiating final phase. EDA to critical failure is 20 minutes. Begin your approach now. Copy that, Admiral Walsh replied. The fleet is moving in. Good luck, Commander. Dixon initiated the overload sequence. Deep beneath them, 3 fusion reactors began operating outside their safety parameters. The changes were subtle at first, small fluctuations that would not trigger alarms for several minutes. But those fluctuations would grow exponentially until the reactors could no longer contain the energy they were producing. It is done, Dixon said. We have 18 minutes. Kyle stood and drew his weapon. Then let us not waste them. Peterson, you are with Dixon. Get to the hangar bay and secure our transport. Morgan, you are with me. We are going to make sure the Zitherans stay busy while the reactors do their work. The door to the conference room opened. The Zitharan guards outside barely had time to register what was happening. Before Kyle and Lisa opened fire, the aliens dropped. Their armor no match for point-blank shots from human weapons. Alarms immediately began blaring throughout the facility. Kyle grabbed one of the fallen guards' weapons. A heavy plasma rifle designed for 4 arms but manageable with 2 if you were strong enough. Go, 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 he shouted. They ran through the corridors of the base, moving fast before the Zitherans could organize a response. Dixon and Peterson split off toward the hangar bay, while Kyle and Lisa headed deeper into the facility toward